Hi, I'm Coleen Sews and Chats, and this was me trying to figure out what I wanted to do differently on a hanging towel. I started out with Seminole piecing. This started on a live. That's why you're only getting a glimpse of it here. I will try to put in the cards the live so you can see the whole thing. I thought a pieced band would be really cute since most bands are plain that have this hanging part on them. So I pieced it and I struggled and I continued to piece. I actually did one of these upside down during the live and I decided it was now a design choice. And I rolled with it. Sometimes you gotta do that. And I needed it longer than those strips. So I started out thinking I was clever enough. I'll just cut strips and add them. And I did. Then I decided, meh, I'm just gonna cut right off the piece of fabric and cut it to size. Sometime after this, I'm going to do a full tutorial walkthrough, I hope, soon. That this is just me thinking as I go. So it's kind of a jumbled mess. I did start with the band. And the original pattern I saw, the band was a different width. And it wasn't pieced. Oh, look at that, I know how to iron. It does happen. That was a joke. Still working on getting those to the right size for the band I was making. Wow, you think the video is bad? You should stop listening to the voiceover now. You can tell I'm doing a lot of thinking. And I realized that I need a template for this. It makes it much easier to cut around the template than to try to measure from the center every time. So I have cut a template out of a cutting board that you get at the Dollar Tree. 2 for $1.25, I think, nowadays. It cut pretty easy with a box knife. But I didn't have that when I was doing this, so we continue to struggle. And I really love these colors together. The white and blue is from an Astral layer cake, I think it was. And the red is actually a grunge. I flipped it over because I didn't want the grunge side. Ah, here. Here is where I start just, forget about trying to be all nice and neat. We're going to take the whole piece of fabric, put it up there, sew it down, and then, yeah, thread broke. So let's try that again. And shockingly, yes, the machine works much better when you've got it threaded. And I just cut it right off. This, I don't even know, it was probably like a fat quarter I was using when it started. I've since butchered it just a little bit. The fat quarter, not the piece. Here, come on, keep up. And yes, that is exactly how I did it. Like I said, now that I've got a template for that, I'm so much easier. So now I have my band pieced. That's going to show across the front. I don't want to take off too much because I can always take off. I can't add back. Still mathing, calculating, ironing. And that would be me figuring out what size of the back fabric I need, because this is layered, the band, a piece of interfacing, and the back fabric for the band. Small spaces. I do more wrestling with everything than anything else over here. Yeah. Pretty sure I needed to change that blade. But why do it now when I can wait until later? Cutting the selvage. That word trips me up every time. Off. Dude, hopefully cutting it to match the front side of the band. You just never know. Sometimes I'm on my game with cutting. Other days, I should put the scissors down. And I did, this was the interfacing I used that I then, once I figured out those sizes, I got to cut that down. And yeah, that's what it looks like when I'm making it up as I go along. And believe it or not, I cut out an hour of just nonsense. Piddling, picking, turning, indecision. So this was actually longer. Now I put my pieced fabric pretty side up, the interfacing on top of it, and the backing. See, I've already fibbed. Put the pieced fabric pretty side up, then the backing right side to the pieced fabric, then the interfacing. And I'm going to go sew down the top edge and then flip it and sew down the bottom edge. Who knows what the chipmunk's saying? That's why I have to do voiceovers. If it's not me talking, it's the radio. So go down one side, and then we turn, and go down the other side. And it does not like intersections. Yeah, it's probably just a me problem. Either way, it's that struggle. And then I'm going to pull between the two pretty fabrics, scrunch it up, flip it around to where the pretty side is out. And that is going to be the band. I'm fiddling with it to straighten it up, to get these seams to lay flatter for me. I didn't show it, but I did run just a simple quilting stitch, like top stitch around that blue and white part to keep it all together a little bit neater. That's a chopstick. It's not a real chopstick. I got it in a bag of some kind of stuffing for animals or something, who knows. Now I have gotten the fabrics, instead of using one piece of fabric because, well, that's just too darn easy, I wanted to use two. And I had the layer cake, so I took 2 pieces of the layer cake. I just went with the width of my foot on this. I didn't do a 1/2 inch, I didn't do a 1/4 inch, I just, whatever the widest part of my foot was, that's where I lined my fabric up and I took off. Because I knew this was still going to be long enough for what I wanted, and I'm not giving that measurement right now because I have changed it. I can tell you, doing it this way, you have to remember to account for that seam when you're measuring. And I don't have to mark the top because that seam is my top. I don't have directional fabric to worry about or anything like that. That would be a whole nother headache I gave myself. Now, band's finished, fabric's finished, hanging fabric for the hanging piece. Now I'm going to set up the towel. This is a towel I got in a pack of, I think, 6 from Walmart. Really inexpensive. And I'm cutting it in half. Let's see, lengthwise. Oh, don't cut like that. That's wrong. Yeah, I got nothing for that. It makes me very ashamed of myself every time I see it. Okay, so I'm gonna set up for the pleats. I use Taylor's chalk because it washes right out. I'm folding it edge to edge, marking the center, then folding the edge to the mark I made, marking the center, the fold that I just made. Then I'm doing it one more time. Edge to the mark the fold. Shampoo, rinse, repeat on the other side. I don't know why I should that again. To make sure I was paying attention to myself, who knows? Then you move one mark to the center and another mark to the center, and this is the raw edge. The finished edge is at the other end, and the back of the towel is facing up when I mark this. And then the side of the towel to the mark, and I'm going to clip it. Clips are easier to get off the bulk than pinning for me at this point. You can pin, you can be brave and just hang on to it. I'm going to do a quick stitch across the top to keep it from moving around on me when I go to put it on the fabric. I don't suppose you have to do this, but it helped me. Slowly but surely. And I probably did a 1/4 inch there because I'm going to do closer to the width of my foot when I do the next stitch across it, so I didn't want it hanging out. That's not going to make any sense. Now I have my fabric pretty side up, my towel pretty side up. And I decided ahead of time that the pretty side of the towel and the blue side of this fabric are going to match. I just can't get away from it. My phone is always going off. I have a 1/2 inch difference between the towel and the fabric here. I'm measuring it and making sure that I clip it a 1/2 inch in so I can do my next step. Which I'm hoping I get to before my phone goes off again. I'm clipping the fabric to keep it from shifting at all on me to the back, the towel to the fabric. And then I'm rolling the towel up, kind of like you do a burrito pillow, a pillowcase, if you've seen those. I have no idea what I'm saying to myself there. Pulling it over, matching up my sides and the top raw edges. I'm just moving my clip and reclipping. Now I'll fold that 1/2 inch. Okay, eventually. I'm going to fold the 1/2 inch over instead of doing this in a separate step. Clip it in on both sides. And sew across the top. Like I said, you can do a 1/2 inch. I imagined width of my presser foot because I can't be bothered to measure things sometimes. And that accuracy didn't matter, just consistently all the way across is what mattered, which you will see I did not nail either. And I'll go back and fix it. I am not ashamed. I was figuring this out, and I was having a good time figuring it out. You probably can't tell that. But I go over once and realize, oh, it's so slower than I talk. I double stitched back, or I back stitched in the center just because I'm like that. I also back stitch at the very beginning and the very end. That's where I decide, I traveled a little bit. Let's see if we can do that again better. And then we did. I guess I should have said spoiler alert. Okay. Good news is we're almost done. It is that fast. Plus, like I said, I cut a whole inch. When I pulled the towel out, it flipped the fabrics right side around. Now the fabric that I want facing out with the right side of the towel is, I'm folding these over in, I'm folding these in a half an inch-ish. I'm not measuring this. And then I'm marking my band. I have changed the way I do that because, like I said, this was just figuring it out, and I was like, oh, I could have done that better. I could have done that better. There was an easier way. There is a ton of easier ways, and I am going to put a video up with that because I can't stand this one to be the last word. Seriously. Okay, those are my folded sides. My sides that are folded in. I'm tucking the left side in to the marks I made. And yeah, see, I even tell you on the screen, not the best way. I'm pinning and clipping, it just depends on where it is, what I'm wanting to do. And then I tuck this side in. See, not the best way because I'm going to be fighting with this later, and there was no need for that. Although the original pattern I saw, you do have to move the band around, and I get around that. Next time I make this, you'll see how I get around that. I'll probably pop it up on the screen how I got around that next time, but we're not there yet. Trying to keep things from shifting. I want that band to stay up as close to that top seam as I can. I'm going to fold my edges over about a half inch. I'm just using the mark that I had from where I pressed it on the sides, lining those edges up, clipping, pinning to keep them together. And this is where I start the fight with the sewing. That was so unnecessary. One, that band would have been in back of my foot. This would have been smoother. That was one mistake, but I had even an easier way after I made this. Put the right side of the band in between the fabrics, do the top stitch, down the side, come around the bottom. Then on the way back up the other side, you put the other side of the band in before you don't close the hole, don't sew over your hole. Put the other side of the band in. Finish sewing, and you still don't have to fight that band to sew across the top with your top stitch. I'm explaining this because you can't see where I was stitching. I did a top stitch that's pretty close to the edge along the right side, and I fought that band. When I turned to do the stitch, you could do 1/4 of an inch on the where the towel is inserted. I forget I have to enunciate things sometimes. So anyway, as I struggle, no, there is a better way, and I will show that probably next week. Told everybody I had an awful video. They're like, oh, so now they've got to see it, and I'm sorry. It does give you an idea of how I did this though. And my next one will be more precise, I hope. I would love to do a video without a voiceover, but I'm terrible. I'm going down the left side of that band now. Almost done with my struggle. Just top stitching to keep it in. You can backstitch a couple times. I backstitch when I start and stop. You can backstitch at the top of the band and at the bottom of the band, just because you know there's going to be some tugging on that when it's put on and off the stove handle, which is what these are intended for. So that's why I'm making them. And boom, there we have it. It's finished. It was awkward, frustrating. It's done. Here are just a couple more that are finished. I hope you have a good day, and like I always say, be the light you hope to see in others.